Oh, hi. How are you? Like surprise.
Well, I tell you, that intro's so cool. I love that music. I feel like I should be, leaping astride my stallion and drawing my sword. It's such great intro music.
100%. Like it was very like this is epic, epic, epic. Now it's gone. Here's my face. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh hi, hello. I'm so glad we're talking about some good
And
fantasy
here's the
because that's
actual author, and let's bring it down a notch.
no, the author's the great part. And it's like, hi, Marisa's face is here. I'm like, oh shoot, my
You've
face
just
is not
experienced the best part. Here's the denouement.
correct. And see, now we break. We'll build slowly back up again until we go to the reading. It'll be great. It'll be so good. So, hi, hello, friends and
Hello.
family. Um, we are here. I am so pumped to get to host this next hour or so. We are here because Todd has hit a huge watermark for an author, which is completing a trilogy, which not all authors can say they have done. So, very exciting. So, Todd's going to talk to us today about the Slate Wizards and the entirety of the Whisper Prince saga. We have lots of questions. We'll be taking questions from y'all. There's a reading, there's all kinds of stuff. But Todd, before we get in there too far, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. So I'm Todd Fahnestock. I write mostly high fantasy. So epic fantasy that is more like Lord of the Rings than Game of Thrones is how I would describe it. Though don't get me wrong, I love Game of Thrones. That's just not typically what I write. And Marisa is correct. This is the completion of a trilogy for me. It will be the third series that I've completed, and the second trilogy. But the first trilogy that I've completed on my own. The other trilogy that I completed was with a co-author, and then my other completed series is 4 books, so it doesn't really count as a trilogy. It'd be a quadrology. So just if we're splitting hairs, but
We're gonna get technical, yeah.
but this one is very close to my heart. It was kind of a real growth moment for me when I wrote the first book. It was quite the threshold, and so finally getting to complete this has been a wonderful, wonderful thing. And there's all kinds of cool history which we'll get into. I know that we're planning to get into, so I won't gild the lily too much.
Agreed, Becca. Yay for trilogies. And hi, welcome. Hello. I think
Hi, Becca.
Becca is also the best.
She
She's saying
is.
we're the
Yes.
best.
I think we should spend this hour and just talk about Becca. I think she would love that. She's particularly fond of the spotlight, so I think that what we could do the most for her would be to talk about her this whole time.
I mean, that seems like the right call. That's probably what we should do. Yeah. We got an immediate no. She has seen what she needed to see. She said no.
3 no's.
It was three. Three
Three
no's
no's.
straight away.
That's like a magic spell. If you say something 3 times, thrice
Yeah.
3 times, and then
Right.
it becomes real.
We're gonna have to play that epic music again to go with the nope,
Yes,
nope, no.
yes.
Like
Every time somebody casts a spell, every time they
yeah.
say something 3 times.
The music is in the back. Oh man. Okay. So yes, we are gonna talk a lot about Slate Wizards and the trilogy and other things you've written, all the things. But as before we do that, what is the like 30 to 60-second snapshot of the Slate Wizards? What should people know about this brand new book?
Okay, so without giving away too much, because there are spoilers in it for previous books, it is the completion of Gray's character arc, and he has got a fairly traditional trope kind of character arc where he starts with very little power. Like that is the fantasy trope. Like somebody like Frodo starts with very little power and ends up being the one that at the end is like the only one that can save the day, right? And in Frodo's case, it's because he has possession of this very powerful artifact. He himself doesn't grow in power, but a lot of times the fantasy trope is somebody starts out with very little power and they grow personally in their power until they are the one that can actually save the day in the end. And Gray is one of those category of heroes, is that he starts off almost helpless except for this drive to try to do right in the world, and then he discovers this magic that is these whispers. That's why it's called the Whisper Prince trilogy, is these whispers from the elements all around him. And at first they're gibberish, then they resolve into words, and he realizes that they're talking to him, and that he further realizes that if he talks back to them, they'll do whatever he asks them to do. So he can make rock seem like water, he can make water seem like rock or air or whatever. So he can essentially kind of change the elements to suit his desires, and that gives him a great deal of power. Well, he steps from that into a world of more powerful creatures, and in this final one, he is facing the two gods that actually built the world originally, and are in this sort of perpetual yin-yang state of love and fighting at the same time. And he kind of gets mixed up in between these two forces in the world, and has to, do his Whisper Prince thing, bring his human morality to a situation of two creatures that are above or beyond or below human morality. You get to decide as the reader.
Varying, they are not constrained by it, however it goes.
Correct.
Okay, so we're gonna get back to like the story and the magic and the pantheon of gods. There was a great submitted question about the pantheon of gods, so we will come back to debate that issue, where they fall. So as we think about like finishing a trilogy, so from that first novel several years ago to now, what do you feel like? Why was now the right time to finish the trilogy?
I think the short answer is because I couldn't do it last year.
Sure.
So Slate Wizards was slated, so to speak, to be finished at the end of 2021. I appreciate that you appreciate my lame puns.
That was good. Yeah.
And it was funny because I entered 2021 with a head of steam from Tower of the Four, and then in the spring of 2021, Tower of the Four, another one of my series, not only was a finalist for the Colorado Book Award, one of 3 fantasy books in the state to hit that threshold, but it was the winner of the Colorado Authors League Award for Writing Excellence. So it was like getting all these accolades, right? And at the time, I had just finished Khyven the Unkillable, and it had not been published and wouldn't be slated to be published until December of that year. But behind the scenes, everybody was like, oh my gosh, what a great novel is Khyven the Unkillable. So I was having all of this positive feedback, which of course is what most writers want, right? And they do say, be careful what you wish for, right? So all this good stuff came my way. And then I went to write Slate Wizards, and I had been so long off the project. Oh my gosh, Becca just said,
so good.
Later.
Later, catch us later.
See, look, she wants the limelight. She wants the spotlight. As I said before, I think we may want to let's pull her up on the screen. I think we should invite her up.
We should. We would have a lot of fun with that.
So
the link. She could join if she wants to.
She does, right? She can do it. Come on, Becca. Come on up onto the
We're not the.
If you don't want to do it now, maybe you could do it later.
No, full circle.
So then I got ready to do the Slate Wizards, and I had like half a year. I mean, I think I started working on it like in August, right? So it was practically half a year, and I'm like, oh, no problem, I'll get this done. And I already had 30,000 words done on it, right? So I'm like, no problem. I wrote Khyven the Unkillable in like 2.5 months. This is gonna be no problem. And I completely vapor locked. I completely locked up because of all of the positive feedback. So let that be a warning to everyone who's like, oh, as soon as everybody loves my stuff, it'll be easier to write, right? No, because what happens is this. You're like, oh, I hit a pinnacle, which means if I don't hit it again, everybody's going to know I'm a fake, because all writers, we all have imposter syndrome. Like, I don't care how many successes you've had. We're all like, if we've had successes, then we're like, oh, well, we can't do it again. We're a fake. And if we haven't had successes, it's like, well, I've never actually had a success, so I'm a fake, right?
Yeah.
It's like one of those like flow charts that all leads down to the same answer,
Fraud.
What is it that you have to say to yourself to tell yourself, oh, I'm a fake, I'm a phony? It's, so I hit this wall and I was like, oh my gosh, what if it sucks? What if it sucks? What if it sucks?
Yeah. I don't even know how words work. Yeah.
And so I stopped writing and baked cookies for like 2 months, November and December. Like all of my friends, like I would show up to their door with my 3rd plate of like 24 cookies, and they're like, they would shut the door and lock it and be like, no, don't let him in. Don't let him in.
We can't have 10 more cookies. Don't encourage this. We can't do it.
And so come the new year, I gave myself permission to write a crappy novel. It's like, you know what? I don't care how bad it is. I'm going to write a crappy novel. And I wrote Laurel of the Dark. in like
Not
2
crappy.
months.
Yeah.
And it ended up not being crappy, at least according to the people that I've had some feedback from. So that would be the whole lesson as far as, just keep writing. Even if you think it's going to be crappy, it's probably not as bad as you think it is.
Yeah.
So why now? Because I couldn't do it last year. And when I got to the end of this year, I'm like, I don't care. I don't care how bad it is. I'm going to write this novel. And I put on like 10 pounds writing this novel because every time I was afraid, because now I had like a psychological stick for it, right? I mean, like
Yeah.
I'd start to kind of, fade out. I'm like, oh, it's happening. It's
Yeah.
happening all over again.
I'm making cookies again. I just sleep state. Yeah.
So I'm trapped in the same nightmare. It's Groundhog Day, right? And so how I would break that deadlock is I'd go get myself some zingers, or I'd go get a Coca-Cola, or anyways, straight to junk food. This is like a vice of mine when I'm unsure and I need to get going on something. And so literally I put on 10 pounds that I'm now furiously trying to work off.
Oh, I hear that. Oh,
it was all worth it. It was all worth it, right? I mean, like, you get your book done, it's all worth it. And then you just got to pay attention, go back to undoing the damage that you did. So that's how it ended up happening. And of course, as I am with every book now, when I get done with it, I was certain it was horrible, right? I was just like, it's so funny because when I was in college and what I was writing was actually horrible, I always thought it was amazing. I get done, right? Yeah. I get done and be like, oh, this is fantastic. I'm so good. I'm so awesome.
So good at
this. And now when I get done with the story, I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's might be the worst thing I've ever written.
Yeah, exactly. And then I get feedback from people. And then a year later, after I've gotten enough feedback, I'm like, oh, that was one of my good novels. Like, it totally flips, right? And then nothing else can compare to it. So anyways. So now, because it's needed to be done for a long time, and I finally pushed myself to finish the story. And also I think because epic fantasy writers, like, our job is to kind of build something larger and larger and larger and larger. That's why it's epic fantasy, right?
Yeah.
And so when you're building a series, you get into that mode. That becomes your comfort zone, is to throw more foreshadowing out there, throw more plot lines out there, throw more little characters that are just kind of beginning to flower. And so shutting it all down, getting to the other side of that, where it's like, it's all going to come to an end, is hard. It's not what we naturally do. Like, we want to keep building. And so when you start to shut it down, it feels wrong. It's like when you start to wrap up all the plot lines, it starts to feel like it's not what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
So that was so now, because I finally pushed myself to do it. That's why.
Now why? Okay. So I also enjoy that we have just found out that epic fantasy is like what is it? Kudzu from the that plant that just grows over everything.
Never ending. Yeah. Like it just keeps growing and growing and growing. I mean, a la Robert Jordan, a la George R. R. Martin. I mean, there's just so many of them. Patrick Rothfuss. It's like they create these beautiful, wonderful, amazing worlds we can't wait to get back to, and then we got to wait to get back to them. So.
Yeah. Which is the excitement of a completed trilogy, right? It's not the first time you've done it, but it is the end of your first series, which is super exciting.
Yeah. And the first one, I mean, I think the reason that Fair Mist is special. Oh, by the way, hello, the ogre has landed. Quincy is here. Hi, Stacy. Thanks so much for showing up.
We love having
We're having a good time. We could have a good time if it was just Marisa and me, but we are having so much more of a good time now that
you guys are here. Yeah.
Quincy throws the table. Rawr.
We did try to get Becca to get on the video, so you guys can all convince her in the comments.
Yes, everybody should like tell Becca she needs to get on the video.
She only said nope one time to that. Yeah, it was just a one nope.
I'm gonna suffer so much for that. I like so Jeremy keeps throwing up the quotes, and like he could just repeat that nope quote like
it's
every
just
time
a
I
nope
say
over and over.
You just grab the same one, Jeremy.
She's gonna vary it though, so we know it's new. Like, now it's a no. Next time it'll be like no smiley face.
Get on video. Thank you, Quincy. Pressure, more pressure.
Ugh, we're just gonna make her more stubborn about it. So, so what would you say in writing the trilogy? I got distracted by Quincy. I couldn't help it. How do you feel like your style has changed?
I don't even know how to answer that question because there's so much that has happened. I mean, I could literally write you a list. From the time that I wrote Fair Mist to now and the conclusion of this, I have gone through so many cycles. Let's see if I can remember at least some of the main ones. So
Yeah.
one of them is that at a certain point, and I think every author probably reaches this point, I stopped writing just for myself and I started writing for my audience. Now, that is to say, I mean, I think all of us start writing because there's a certain catharsis we're craving from the words, right? Like we want to get our story out there. We want to get our heroes out there. We want to get our idea that we had out there, right? And my experience is that those things never stop. The more you do them, the more you have. The more ideas you put on page, the more ideas bubble up for you. Maybe it's not that way for everybody, but it's certainly that way for me. It's like a muscle, right? I mean, the more you flex your muscles, the more you use them, the more they want to be used. They feel like, oh, this is what he wants, so I'm going to give him what he wants. And I think the brain is the same way, that the more I create, the more I want to create. At least that's how it's been so far. And so, but there did come a point where I'm like, okay, I want to do this as a living. I want to make money at this. And if you want to do that, you have to build a rapport with people who want to pay you money to do this, right?
Yeah.
So it behooves you to understand what it is that your audience wants and try to give it to them, right? And try to be conscious about, what you're offering and what you're paying. Like I'm a big fan of the payoff, right? So if you like drop a thing at the very beginning of your chapter, you want to pay them off at the end of the chapter, at the end of the next 3 chapters, at the end of the book. At some point, you need to pay them off for what you're promising, right? And you build credibility that way. And then readers learn to trust you. And then they're the ones that are like, oh my God, Todd Fahnestock has another book out. And every time I read his book, it's like, it always makes me feel so good because I always get everything I want.
Yes.
So,
awesome.
Being cognizant of that as opposed to just kind of stumbling across it intuitively was something that changed since I wrote Fair Mist. Fair Mist was, and I know you've got a question coming up later on about the main female character and how
it's the next question. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll dovetail into that in a second. So it was very much about me and my situation, and then all the things that I wanted to create in Fair Mist. And I was vaguely aware of. I mean, I think we're all somewhat subconsciously aware of story structure because we've heard stories our whole lives and it's there, it's kind of embedded in us. And so we tend to present it that way, but being more conscious about it can make your stories pop even more. And since Fair Mist to now, I have done a lot of thought on that. And I always go through like a double and triple check to make sure I'm checking off the boxes that I think my readers will expect, to make sure that I'm delivering to them what they want, not just delivering to them what I need to get out of me. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah.
So that's one thing. Another major thing, and I'll stop after the other major thing. There's lots of things, but the other major thing was actually reading structure books, actually reading wisdom that other people have compiled. I mean, when I was in college, I'm like, I don't want to read all that stuff.
I know how to do
this. Do it on my own. I got my own style. I got my own thing going on. I want to do it my way, right? Well, I get that. And I think it's important for you to establish who you are and what you want to do. But I think it's also kind of stupid to not avail yourself of understanding tricks and traps that other people have noticed along the way. There's a lot of wisdom from a lot of writers that you can absorb out there, and you don't have to, but it's probably going to take you longer to get where you're going if you don't avail yourself of some of these things, right? And so
learn the hard way,
right, exactly. And so Save the Cat I love Save the Cat. I love the structure of Save the Cat, and everybody's got their different structure. I know that some people don't like Save the Cat and they like other structures better. But it really, really spoke to me because it's so flexible, and I'm a dyed-in-the-wool pantser, not a plotter.
Yeah.
But I do both now. I do both now. I mean, I will definitely go off on my own in my own trail when I want to, but I start off with that structure just to kind of frame it, and it makes things go faster. It makes me get to what I do best faster, and it keeps me from making fatal flaws, because there's nothing worse than getting 3/4 of the way through a novel, realizing you had a fatal flaw in the first quarter, and those 50,000 words, they got to go. Save the Cat and other structures like it can help you stop that. So those are 2 big things that I've learned since Fair Mist to Slate Wizards.
Nice. Okay, so those are things that have evolved over. So as you think about things that have evolved, but remained true to themselves, like your characters, I heard a very interesting tidbit. I mean, from him, y'all, from him. But I heard a very interesting tidbit in how you create your characters, specifically Adora. Do you wanna share with the crowd?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah. Um, I'll early on, like I was saying before, the catharsis of kind of doing what you want to do, like kind of getting all your stuff out. So a lot of my main characters are based on either a part of my personality, or B, the kind of person that I would like to be,
Sure.
and Gray is definitely an example of one of those characters. He's the main character that I kind of would like to be, to have all that
Mhm.
power, to have all that opportunity to become this big, influential person in the world. And Adora, the concept of Gray and Adora actually happened because of a girl that I fell in love with in college that didn't love me back. I mean, she did, but she wanted really to be a friend, and
Yeah,
not anything
sure.
more than that. And so the original concept of Gray and Adora was based very much in that sort of heartbreak, but also that sort of ticklish hope for possibility and all that stuff. And originally, um, Adora was specifically, she was supposed to like emotionally seduce Gray, but physically she was
Mhm,
not supposed to be with him. So it was like
mhm.
my sort of explanation as to why this girl that I was in love with didn't want to be with me.
Would
Like
never be with me. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I
this
get
really
it.
silly adolescent, well,
Mhm.
I'm gonna imagine that it was like this prophecy
This
that
way,
was why
yeah.
she didn't fall in love with me, right?
Mhm.
It's just so adolescent, but it turned into kind of the opposite, that it was her job to actually seduce him. And that happens in the first book. I mean,
Mhm.
it just played better for the story, but it
Yeah,
started out the exact opposite. Like she wasn't supposed to, she was specifically not to go there
yeah.
in any kind of physical way. She was supposed to just kind of lead him on like a tease so that she could get him to go in the direction of the
Something.
prophecy. And
Yeah.
it just, for the story, it seemed like, if the most important thing in the world is for him to follow this prophecy, boy, the personalities of these sort of insidious priests slash wizards that
Mm,
brought her up, was yeah, no, do everything you have to do in order to make this
mhm,
happen. So
mhm.
that ended up being the real path that it took. But the original one was, like I said, a lot more kind of silly and adolescent, and sort of some way to work out my own little emotional
Yeah.
problems.
I mean, what is an author but a teenager with grown-up skills, hopefully. You know?
I have not heard that said better than what you just said. It's
We do.
absolutely what it is.
Yeah. So, but it's also to your point, like, because people are always like, where do you get your ideas? And, to your point about like, you get more ideas the more ideas you have. That's not the interesting thing. It's how do you develop them? So you're inspired by people in real life or your own characteristics or characteristics you wish you had, but that's just the starting place. What's interesting is what you do with them. So how it best serves the story, how it best gets your characters where they need to go, or how the characters surprise you in going where it is they need to go. And that's super cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, yeah, my pleasure. Oh,
Speaking
by
of,
the way,
oh
hi
yeah,
Melissa. Melissa just
hi
joined.
Melissa. She's so great. So good. Oh, Jeremy, can you also put up, we have producer Jeremy, invisibly in the house. Becca's comment about Todd as an author. Yeah. This is such a good comment. So that, and he didn't even pay her to say this, you guys. So the I've heard this a lot about Todd's writing, and I have seen it in the stories I've read of just this, you tell such a satisfying story that does exactly what it needs to do, but it's never something that you're like, oh, this is the next thing that's definitely going to happen. Oh, this is the next. Like you never entirely know what's going to happen, but then it happens. You're like, yeah, that's the only way that could have gone, but you don't see it coming, and that's a skill. That's really cool.
Thank you, thank you. Actually, Becca came up with a word for that. I actually rather like it. I'll let her say it, and then Jeremy can pull it
Okay,
up.
then put it up. You should tell. It is a great. I think I learned about it in the Lorel of the Dark launch, so it's pretty good. I always say your name wrong on purpose now because I'm saying it. So we'll get there. All right.
I think there's a
Quick
delay
filter.
between the chat. Oh yes,
There it is. Fahnestock. So good.
thank you, Becca. I appreciate you picking up that gauntlet.
So good. I do always say it. I don't know if this is your fault, Becca, but it probably is. I do always say it like Frau Blucher. So it's like the like strong German, like the horses are neighing in the background. It's delightful every time. So um okay, in terms of developing cool things like characters, the magic system is really cool. in this trilogy. Can you share with folks, like you talked a little bit about the whispers of it and the like how that makes reality sort of malleable. Can you talk about either the implications of it or how you came up with it or something that surprised you about it?
Yeah. So I think there's a little bit of my own personal philosophy, or at least the philosophy that I aspire to, in the magic in the Whisper Prince.
Mm-hmm.
And so what Gray does, as I mentioned before, is that he listens. He can hear the elements around him essentially repeating their nature, their essence, over and over and over again. So a rock is essentially saying rock, 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 right? Or strength, weight, heaviness, lasting the test of time. So it's not actually English that he's hearing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's this language that essentially can express essences, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he can request that those essences be a different way. And there is nothing in this particular world, there's no law of physics that stops them from changing, right? So they can do what he requests of them to do. That's the nature of the magic in this world. So it's really this sort of almost like, it's not forceful like a fireball, or it's not like, this destructive thing where you're bending the elements to the breaking point. It's this request, it's this invitation and a return, so a cooperation between him and the world. And in fact, we find in the first book that if he tries to force them to be something else, if he doesn't ask, if he doesn't like extend it as an invitation, it makes them stupid. So essentially, he gets dumber and dumber and dumber if he's constantly forcing the elements to do what he wants them to do. So there's a backlash, right? If you're not working in cooperation, there's this backlash that then if you steal from the elements, they steal from you, right? And not in any sort of malevolent way. It's like that's the type of physics. Exactly. That's the kind of cause and effect that's happening in this particular world. So he has to be careful. Like he can't just like if something's happening so fast that he has to demand something of the elements so that it happens really fast, he pays the price for it, right? So if he has the time to kind of make a good invitation, he could make a castle, right? But if he's got to stop an arrow from hitting him in a split second and he demands that the air turn hard in front of him, like boom, his IQ is going to take a hit and he will not operate as effectively for a good long while. So I think that I've always believed in this sort of idea of cooperation and unity is what will elevate, humankind. And you'll see that theme, I think, in many of my books, even though, don't get me wrong, I love to get in and mix it up and bring the violence and bring the hacking and the slashing, as you'll see in many of my stories, because I just love writing action scenes. But behind that, there's a lot of what I wish could be true, what I aspire to do, even if I may not do it perfectly in my own life. And this is one of those. I mean, that's kind of how the magic came about.
That's super cool. That's super cool. What would you do if you had Gray's powers for a day? If you were the Whisper Prince, what would you do?
I would tell my house to clean itself. I think.
Nice.
All the dirt just go scuttling outside,
all those chores, just get all the chores up the plate.
It'd be like Fantasia, I'd have the broom doing its little sweeping thing. I'd have the clothes jumping into the laundry and drying themselves. I mean, it would just be it would be great. No, I mean, clearly I would do all the fun stuff. Like I would go and fly, just ask the Stacy's like, same. Melissa's like, yes.
Legit, y'all. I was immediately like,
Oh, and Becca, I love Becca's comment. I love how honesty is at the heart of the Whisper Prince magic and the series. Awesome. It's true. And there's a lot of lies. I mean, like the first book, the themes are a lot about deception and lies and the things that we believe because we want to believe them. I mean, like the whole debt of the blessed, which is essentially this monthly sacrifice that the emperor has agreed to, that once a month from one of the villages in the empire, somebody gets taken and they get fed to the Slinks, and that's how their society continues on and thrives, right? And this is the sort of the catharsis, the catalyst at the beginning of the book that gets Gray moving, is because he cannot abide this sacrifice, and yet like he lives in this town that is having this week-long party called the Harvest Home Festival, while like 2 days ago some kid just got snatched,
Shoot.
and we don't want to look at that. We don't want to see that. We just want to be part of our party, right? And we want to continue having the party, and we don't want to look at what the cost is for us to continue our, our week-long party, right? And he wants to get to the bottom of it. So so that's that was a great comment that she made, and there's a lot of that in the book. Okay, what do we got? Forget that. I'd go to the mall and melt the floor. Meet the new escalator.
Specifically anti-mall. We just took a turn. Thanks, Becca.
Would that be your superhero name, Becca? The Escalator.
The new escalator.
The new escalator.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
Where she goes, the conflict escalates.
It's a pun, see, because every situation the new escalator comes to gets.
Yes, every chance she gets, there will be an escalation of the puns, I'm sure.
So good.
I forgot the original question. I got so into.
We're gonna come back to this, the honesty at the heart and the themes. So you were about to say all the other things besides cleaning your house that you would do with magic. I think you would fly.
Right. So flying. I would go flying. Because I've always wanted to just fly. That would be fun to just ask the air to lift me up and just take me over the city and just, although there would be some dangers with flying, right? I mean, like it's not the flying that hurts, it's the landing, right?
Yeah.
So you have to get that right. Otherwise you could get really hurt. I mean, if you've ever jumped from like 15 feet up in the air, like that, that hurts.
It's the art of throwing yourself at the ground and missing.
Oh, thank you, Douglas Adams.
Yeah, right.
That was Douglas Adams, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I love that.
So good.
I think, what else would I do? My wife wants a hot tub, so I think I just like fill the water in the bathtub and just like make it boil, or make it not boil. Okay, see that.
Yeah, like let's not murder your wife.
Really? Yeah, that's okay. No, but make it warm enough. Yeah.
Comfortably warm.
Melissa says anybody can fly once.
It's true. So it's not the flying that's the issue. It's how you stop the process.
How you stop, yes. How and how fast you stop the process of
At what level does this kick in? Yikes. That's awesome. Okay, so we got hot tub, flying, mall sabotage, apparently.
I wonder what Quincy would do. What would Quincy do? Oh, rapid. There we go. Rapid. Oh no, he's
no. That's how you stop flying. Yeah,
defining the stopping of the flying. What would you do, Quincy? What would you do if you had the power to ask the elements? We're talking water. We're talking air, ground. Fire, even like just about anything. What if you could ask it to do something? What would you have it do? We'll wait for his answer. We can move on to others.
I like it.
There's a little bit of a delay in the.
There is. The chat's a little bit behind us. I'm guessing it's so like YouTube. Oh, nice.
Lights.
Quincy
Okay.
would fly. Yeah.
Me and Quincy, and I think Melissa as well. We're going to be flying. We'll be flying.
Nice. Melissa was a former pilot, so yeah, she knows what she's talking about. How important the landing is,
Don't meet the ground too fast. Telekinesis would be high on the list, but not for humane reasons.
Yeah.
Wow, that begs other questions, doesn't it?
I do have follow-up questions, but I'm not going to make you commit to them in writing on YouTube. So Agent Johnson could be watching. I mean, to be fair, some telekinesis, like I would stock up on, some gold, some precious metals, like.
Yeah, you could turn any rocks into gold. That's a good point, especially if you only had it for a limited time. You're like, okay, every rock in my backyard is now platinum.
Ta-da! I win. Okay, great. Thank you so much. I love you, elements. The end. Okay, great. Maybe repair the environment. I don't know. We could do some cool stuff.
That would work. Yes. Yeah. People.
Becca, I don't. You went right to mall sabotage. That to my I was a teenager in the 80s and 90s. That hurts my heart a little. So that feels like supervillain territory. I'm just saying.
Oh, Stacy, that's nice. A really good one. I like that. I like how it's not like this sort of like, I'm going to do this amazing thing. I just want some time.
Right.
You can make it as quiet as you want, Stacy. I mean, like you could have like zero sound in there. Maybe, sensory deprivation chamber.
Mm-hmm. That's real. And if you all have questions for Todd about the book or about his writing, please go ahead and put them in the comments.
Absolutely.
Because I have plenty, but I get to ask those all the time. Oh, here, do you want to talk a little bit about each of the books?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, this is wonderful. It's wonderful to see. So
It's so
satisfying to see them
beautiful.
all next to each other like that. That makes me so happy. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, so I think I've talked a lot about Fair Mist. I'll talk a little bit about the Undying Man. I mean, in Fair
Mhm.
Mist, Gray has this villain that he's got to overcome, and it's a villain not just of people. Like he's got the Emperor who is doing bad things in the name of trying to do good things, and then we've got Kuruk, who is just apparently plain evil. Although we start to see from his perspective that maybe he's not towards the end, so he's kind of a redeemable character.
Mm.
And then we've got Lindian, who is trying to start this whole prophecy, and I won't tell you too much about him, but he is some people's favorite person to hate in the story.
Oh.
He's got like a trio of these like not uber overpowered people that he's
Mhm.
fighting. In Undying Man, he's actually going up against a demigod. Like the stakes increase, and this guy has been banished because of just
Mm.
rampant murder and destruction, and he gets free.
Mm.
And Gray has to stop him from destroying the whole empire, right?
Yeah.
And then, as I mentioned before, as we move into Slate Wizards, the stakes increase yet again because Gray is coming into his own as a power, and so of course his villains also go up to
Escalate, if you will.
yes escalates a new escalation, if you will, to the level of gods, right? So he's now hitting with the heavy hitters, and the whole climax surrounds that and what then the
Mhm.
world will look like after that conflict. So
That's cool. Can you tell us a little bit about the pantheon? Like what the gods are like? I know you said this like love fight
yes. Yeah,
combo.
yeah. So in Fair Mist, we essentially have this view of these goddesses, is what they
Mhm.
call them, these Faya, right? And that they kind of cropped up in humanity throughout the story, and made cool little advantages for people, little magical things that happen. In fact, the city of Fair Mist is just rife with all kinds of cool magical things that were created by these beings 100 years ago, and then they left, and those things are still around, right? Like the floating droplets in the city of Fair Mist, and the lateral houses, which are turned, sideways, even though the gravity still stays with the house and not the rest of the world. Like it's a really kind of cool thing. And we've got flying hares and floating mountains and, all kinds of really cool, interesting, magical stuff. So those are the ones that people worship. People worship these Faya. Well, come to find out, the Faya are actually the daughters of this extremely powerful demigod and her human lover. So
Mhm.
they're not actually the most powerful. She is. And of course, their brother is the one that Gray faces in book 2. He is like the most powerful of all of them, and he's got to face him in book 2. And then as we graduate into book 3, it's like Grandma that we're talking about,
Mhm.
Devora, for whom the continent is named, and Venetia, for whom the kingdom across the sea is named. And Venetia is the sort of male god, and Devora is the female god, and
Mhm.
they have this sort of love-hate yin-yang kind of relationship where Devora is very much about creating new things, kind of like
Mhm.
an Earth Mother type.
Mhm.
And Venetia is very much about power and conquering and ruling things, right?
Mhm.
Forcing things to be the way that they need to be. So we see a distinction between Gray's type of magic, which I've already described, and the
Mhm.
Venetian style of magic, which is very sort of built on industry and built on artifacts. There's all these sort of metal gadgets, almost like steampunky kind of gadgets that are filled with magic that
Mhm.
do some very powerful, very destructive things sometimes, right? Whereas Gray's is like all about permission and all about like I'm gonna work with all of the forces around me. Venetian magic is very much this is done and cut and dried, and boom, when it works, it's going to do whatever it's going to do, regardless of what anybody else wants, right?
Yes.
And so we see this clash of these two magics, and Gray has to learn both, right? He has to learn how
Yeah.
to juggle both. So that's kind of the conflict that we're, like I said, Fair Mist has this conflict of truth versus lies, and
Mhm.
in um, Slate Wizards, it's a conflict of forcing people to your will as
Mhm.
opposed to garnering consent and having them work for you. Not just people, but also the elements. I mean, it's the whole theme of the whole thing.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. All right, let's see if we've got any questions in the comments. It looks like we're still we're talking about how to apply the magic. So we've got so after Stacy's shut out the world for quiet alone time where I can't be interrupted, Melissa said, says every mom ever. And then Becca, I love, came in with this mute button for everyone you meet. Man.
And you can't talk anymore.
Yeah, and
For
we're done
5
here.
minutes.
Thank you so much. Just you're in timeout. Thank you so much. Okay, bye. So many times. I hope that could work remotely too. So it could just be like, oh, are you making a speech? No, you're not. Shush. No, thank you. You're done. Be nice. That's good. Is there anything else? So you talked about the themes of the trilogy. Is there like a kind of story? Like if somebody says, I love X kind of story, what would be those people, like the people who are going to get the most out of this trilogy? What would be the like, I love this kind of story?
Deep world building where you feel like you can really fall into the world. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've had readers of Theramis just be like, oh my gosh, I want to go live in this world. I mean, like, it's so magical and cool. I mean, because in Theramis, there are these droplets floating in the air all the time. So essentially,
cool.
the Faya have decreed that at the very top of the hill, where there's this waterfall cascades over this cliff, when it hits the pool down below, all of the water that sprays up doesn't come back down. It just sort of stays in the air, and then it gloms on. And so you could have like water droplets the size of somebody's head floating into the city below, right? So there's like all of these water droplets constantly floating through the city, and everybody wears these waterproof cloaks, right? Everywhere you go. Otherwise, you're going to be soaked in like a minute, right? And so it was interesting to me how I created this just as something different. Like I wanted something original. Yeah. And it seemed like a big pain in the ass. Like I wouldn't want to, like I remember when I created it, I wouldn't want to be wet all the time. Like it would be such a pain in the ass. And some of the readers were just like, I so want to live there. I'm like, you do? Like it'd be drenched all the time.
You don't need moisturizer. Your face is always glowing. So
you wouldn't have dry skin. No dry skin in Fairmist. But I mean, the other kind of cool thing is it sets a mood, right? Like you never see the sun.
Yeah.
Like in the daytime, you get this sort of orangish glow over all of the water droplets that are hanging overhead. And in the evening, you get sort of this sparkling moonlight glow. So it kind of, I mean, I could see how that would be really romantic, this sort of tone of the world is these soft and muted colors that are now all around you, not just above you, but like throughout the reflections of the droplets all around you. So if you like deep world building and characters that have an arc, I mean, like you want to see a character grow from one thing into another. And then, I tend to throw in a lot of twists. And my brand, I mean, Player Mist is probably the most mood intensive book that I've ever made. I mean, this series, it's just very much like that. And it's probably one of the grittier series that I have. My books are PG-13. I would say Fair Mist is probably like 16 years old and up. I wouldn't put it at a PG-13 rating exactly.
Yeah, nice.
So there's a little bit more grit in there, and I keep the action coming. I mean, like edge of your seat, epic fantasy is my brand, and so I think Fair Mist does take a little bit more time to build the world. When it moves fast, and it does tend to wind up. Like, I mean, you get to a certain point in. So we've got lots of comments. We got. Hi, Donna. Donna joined us. Hi, Donna.
Donna loves Great World. So here we go. Match made. I love it. Yeah, look at Becca.
Yep. Okay, so Becca put it in better words than I could. So
I think both are great. Yeah, this is beautiful. Wait. I was still. If you want your good guys to go through hell but still win, this is the book for you. Yeah, I like that a lot.
That's actually very accurate. I think. I mean, like I put my heroes through the grinder. Marie Lou once said to me, she's like, "Man, you're really hard on your protagonist."
Yeah, but I feel like that's such a good nuance though. Like it's gritty, but it's not grimdark. Like there is hope. The protagonists win. Like that really matters to me. I'm so tired of the and everyone was miserable and everybody died. The end. Goodbye.
Right. Yeah. Aren't I clever? No, sorry.
Yeah,
I don't mean to slam on grimdark.
No, I mean grimdark has its place, but when everything is grimdark, or you go into it, like you were talking about how as you develop as an author, you want to give readers more of what they want and what they need. So you make deals, right? Like you're making a deal with your readers. And when things aren't necessarily set up to be grimdark, but then are unrelentingly awful, and then everyone loses. You're like,
Yep.
why?
So I had a friend who called me up. We were both watching Game of Thrones. We were like kind of binging the whole thing. And
Mm-hmm.
first of all, let me state, I love Game of Thrones. I
Yep.
mean, it was such a
Such a
mile
good story.
marker, and there's so many good stories. But like, my friend calls me up, and I was telling him, "Yeah, I'm at this part of the thing." He's like, "Yeah, I had to put it down." I'm like, "Why'd you have to put it down?" He's like, I feel awful about humanity. Like, I mean, like
Sad.
his daughter, he like just burned his daughter at this. Like, I can't stand this. I can't watch this anymore. I just have to go and do something where I feel better about myself, because I just don't feel good. Like, my gut hurts after
Yeah.
watching too much Game of Thrones in a row. The whole world starts to seem dim and
Dark.
horrible.
Yes, no, absolutely. Like everything in its place. But like Netflix recently did this advertisement for a story about this kid who loses his dog and his dad helps him find the dog. And in the ad, Netflix says, "This isn't about whether the dog lives or dies. The dog lives. It's about this." And I was like,
Right?
"Thank you. I could watch this now."
People get upset when you hurt animals, like
Well,
even
yeah.
fictional animals. I was reading, I
Mhm.
think it was in Stephen King's On Writing book. Yeah, I
Mhm.
think it was. And he talked about one of the beginning chapters of The Dead Zone, I think it was. And like the
Mm,
main evil character, like we kind of see him as a young man and a traveling salesman, and he kicks the crap out of this dog. Like, I mean,
yeah.
I think he kicks it until it's dead, right? I mean,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just, it's this horrible, horrible scene. And
Yeah.
he got all this fan mail of people who were incensed
Yep.
that he had hurt this dog. And
Dare you.
he's like,
It's not a
okay.
real dog.
He's like, I get it. But first of all, it's the villain. And second of all, it's a fictional dog.
Yeah, it's not real. Like no actual
Dog
animals were
never,
hurt in the making of this.
right, exactly. No animals were actually hurt in the making. But I mean,
I know.
people get upset. They get
Yeah, it's
upset.
visceral.
You
You have
you
to
abuse
be really,
animals.
yes, you have to make purposeful decisions on what it is you're doing. And
Yep.
so I love this. If you want to see the protagonist go through hell but still win, this is your kind of book. And we've got
Quincy's
some
got a
folks.
great comment.
Yeah, we've got some. That's what I was gonna say. It's yeah. See,
Yeah.
see, friends, this is why it's good to be friends with writers, but also dangerous to be
Yes.
friends with writers.
Yep. You could end up a red shirt in somebody's novel.
And you think you have the ability to tell the author, "Don't you dare hurt this one," and then they're like, "Oh, this one here
This
that
one
I'm
right here,
dangling over a
over the
volcano."
lava.
So, that's
Come on.
exactly the lava. Yes. So Melissa said, torturing your characters for the win, um, for like the struggle and the growth, and then they can kick some butt, and that's good. Do you kill all of Donna's favorite characters, or is this somebody else? Donna, is it Todd? Is Todd a dirty murderer?
Oh, who killed? Oh my gosh! What are you talking about? George R. R. Martin? Hopefully, you're talking about George.
Yeah, she might be.
Me. I don't hope I don't kill your favorite characters. I would like to know which characters they are if I killed your
Yes.
favorite characters.
Who are the favorites? Tell us. Oh man. And then Melissa has another point about 100% animal torture for the sake of establishing your bad guy. Same. I also feel that way about sexual assault. Just like there are some things we don't. You can find other ways to show us that people are evil. That's fair.
Right.
That happens. But okay. So you guys, what's going to happen? Because we're getting shockingly close to the end, and I want to make sure that Todd has time for a
It always
reading.
goes so fast. How does it always go that fast?
Oh yes. So Donna said it was Game of Thrones. George R. R. Martin kills all of, yes, that checks that. Yeah. I was like,
Kills
I'm
my
not a
favorite
murderer.
characters.
Yeah. Okay. So cool kids. Two things. One, you've all been commenting and beautifully and wonderfully. Last chance to get in some questions. If you have questions for Todd or about the series, or if you just want to make sure that you're qualified for the giveaways, which we didn't actually talk about in any detail. So we should do that right now.
Yeah.
Todd, thanks, Jeremy. Todd, do you want to talk about what they can win?
So, we're going to give away an Amazon gift card for $20. That's what the Amazon card there is for. We're going to give away a set of the Undying Man trilogy. That is one of the prizes, but the grand prize, the big prize,
Dun, dun,
is
dun.
this amazing crocheted Devora. This is the goddess of the sort of Mother Earth, Mother Goddess that I had mentioned before. She is a dragon. Well, both of them are dragons, and Venetia is pictured on the cover, so you can get an idea of what he looks like. And Devora looks like this. So you can have a one of a kind. I might add, this is like the only one in existence by entering the contest. So so that is the grand prize. So be sure to enter the contest.
Mm-hmm. I covet these. Okay, so what we're gonna dragon stuffy and like goddess dragon to be like
Yeah,
what?
exact.
Yeah.
To be clear, yes.
To be so clear. So we are going to switch the screen over entirely to Todd so we can do a reading. But if you've got questions for him, you just want to make sure you're really fully entered into this contest and you're commenting. Becca is tracking, I understand. Then go ahead and do that. And Jeremy, let's turn the screen over to Todd. So
All right. So I think I should probably give a little precursor because I'm going to read the first chapter of the Slate Wizards. So I apologize for the spoiler, but I think it's important to know moving into this, or maybe it's not. Maybe I just won't say anything. Let's do that. And I can reveal the spoiler if everybody's like, huh? So let's just go straight into the reading. Okay. Prologue. Adora woke for the last time. She sat up, the blankets slipping from her naked body. But she, and my dog's going to chime in. My apologies. Dang it. Galahad, go on. Okay, we're going to start that over. Prologue. Adora woke for the last time. She sat up, the blankets slipping from her naked body, but she didn't shiver. It was warm in the ice hut. It was freezing outside, the most inhospitable place on the entire continent of Devora. But because Gray wanted it to be warm inside this dome of ice, it was. The bed had blankets too, because he had wanted blankets. That was what he did. He could take what hadn't existed and make it exist. He could change the nature of ice and make it warm. He could take someone who was dead and force her to be alive again. Adora had died. Lindian had raked her open with a knife and pulled her guts out. She'd been saved by Velok, the murderous Faya banished from Devora hundreds of years ago. He had bound her body together with fire, but when he'd withdrawn his magic, Adora's body had returned to the ruin it had been after Lindian's knife. After the intense pain and her sudden death, she had found herself surrounded by a green light. It had been gentle and lovely. It had whispered all the assurances she had longed to hear. You will never again be betrayed. You will never again be manipulated for another's purposes. You will never again burn people alive, watching as their bodies blacken and curl into themselves. She closed her eyes, pressed the heels of her hands to her head, and wished the image away. She'd almost escaped the horrors that Velok had forced her to commit. She had floated away from the wreck of her body into the green light. But Gray had snatched her from that place and shoved her back into her body. Now he slept next to her on their bed made of ice, which was, because he had willed it, as soft and warm as a goose down pillow. He was a good man, fallible, impetuous, oblivious, but a good man. She was sure he didn't know what he'd done to her, the gorgeous peace he'd ripped her away from, the burden he'd forced her to pick up again. If he'd known, he would surely have let her die. So she had made love to him last night. She had given him what he wanted. She had taken up the mantle of Adora. She'd allowed herself to live the lie one more time. She stood, moved toward the snowy door of the hut. Beams of ice crossed overhead, walls of ice somehow held in the unnatural heat. She slid her fingers through her black and gold hair, restored to its luxuriant length because he'd wanted it that way. When he had called her back to life, he hadn't brought back the shaved-headed, scarred Adora. No, he had returned her to the way she had been before Velok, before Lindian, the vixen who slung drinks and flirtations across a foot of polished mahogany, the woman he saw as the real Adora. Except there was no real Adora. Even the name was fake. She had lived 3 lives and worn 3 different names, each with its own birth and death, and each more painful than the last. Her first had been Mealine, the princess of Thiara, a scared girl with a heart full of trust. She had ridden to her death on a betrayer's horse. Her second had been Adora, a determined girl with a heart full of hope. She had marched to her death on a path of lies. Her third had been as Velok's avatar, a furious girl with a heart full of hate. She had charged to her death down a road of bloody slaughter. She'd been all of those people, and she'd hated each in turn, transformed into a marionette for others to tug this way and that. Her father had used her as a sacrifice, Lindian to increase his power, Velok as his fiery sword of vengeance. Now Gray used her too. He'd given her the gift of life, and all she had to do was be his fantasy girl. But she understood the truth now. Her father had been flawed, yes. Lindian had been a villain. Velok had been a literal monster, but they were not the culprits. Not really. Life itself was the horror. It was a crop that harvested only pain. No matter how many times she started anew, everything only became worse. There were so many moments that seemed like promises of happiness, but were only carrots dangled in front of her to lead her off a cliff. If Joran Magnus had defended her on the slope of the Slinks that fateful day, had fought for her innocence, then perhaps. Or if Gray had saved her from Basin's order in the South Woods on that fateful day, had built her young life around his love instead of the Order's deceptions, then perhaps. Or if he had just stayed with her that night in the Thiaran Palace after they'd made love, had fought Lindian off and opened up a future for them to be together, then perhaps. But no. These were only the hopes of moments gone. These happy futures didn't exist any more than Gray's fantasy girl did. Life didn't lead to happiness, it led to pain, the only destination at the end of any road. She drew a deep breath and glanced down at the slumbering Gray, then at the foot of the bed. He had created clothes for her, but she didn't want them. She didn't want anything. Goodbye, she whispered. She opened the door, stepped out into the snow, and closed it behind herself. Once shut, the aura of Gray's magic vanished. The icy chill stabbed her like knives. She grit her teeth, lowered her head, and trudged through the snow, sharp ice cutting into her feet, deadly air piercing her skin like needles. All she could see was her blackened, curling victims in her mind's eye, the sad resignation of the green fire, the terror of the orange fire, the surprise of the blue fire. She recalled the desperate effort each had mustered in their last moments, trying to turn the tide as Velok raged through her and burned them to ash. Her legs went numb. She staggered and leaned over, shoving her arm up to the shoulder in deep snow to regain her balance. She shivered uncontrollably, but she staggered ever forward, forcing her body to work just a little longer. She stumbled on a rock, went down beneath a 3-foot snowdrift, and viciously scraped her shins on a hidden rock. Bright red blood dotted the snow when she stood. She kept going. Her eyelashes froze. She couldn't feel her cheeks anymore, and her vision blurred. She peered blearily at back at the hut, but it was no more than a dot of irregularity in the never-ending ripples of white. Breathing became painful, her lungs trying to suck in this air that wasn't fit for people. The killing wind was a skeletal hand scraping along her cheeks, sucking the warmth from her chest. But she forced her stiff legs forward and reached her destination at last. The snow rose a little at the edge of the cliff before rounding off and falling away. She didn't know where in Devora this was. She doubted Gray did either. She doubted this frozen wasteland even had a name. A nameless chasm for a nameless girl. The drifts rose thigh-high as she pushed forward, then waist-high. Her left foot slipped and a cascade of snow fell away to reveal the hard edge of the cliff. She windmilled her sluggish arms and regained her balance. Wind swirled, tossing snow about, and she thought she heard whispers beckoning her. She gazed straight down at the sharp rocks poking up from the white far below, and she jumped. That's the end of the prologue. I can't hear you.
I was lost in the story. So I was like, I don't know how to get back in. And apparently I didn't. I didn't know how to unmute either. I was like, oh my God. Whew,
Maybe Becca
guys.
cast her spell on you,
Yes. That was so good. That was so good. And Becca had a great comment here too. Yeah, this prologue hurts my heart. I love it so much, but I feel her pain. That was compelling. Very nice, Todd.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I think half the time I was sitting, I don't know if you can see when I'm like not on the screen, but I was just sitting there like, oh my God. No.
She's been through so much, and if you've read the first 2 books, you know just how much this poor girl's been through.
Yeah. Oh, whew. Okay, so guys, you should go buy this book ASAP. And if you don't already have Fair Miss, you should get that also. We'll put the link in the comment or in the Jeremy put the link in the comments a little bit ago, but we'll also put it in the show notes afterwards, so you'll see it on the page on the YouTubes. I'm gonna try to shake off that emotional coma, and we're gonna come back.
Sorry to bring it down. I mean, like,
amazing.
chapter, I don't know.
Oh, it was not down. Yes, as Quincy says, buy all 3. Buy them all. I have Fair Mist ready and queued up, ready to read. As soon as I finish this draft that I'm working on, it's my reward book. I'm very excited. I might need to move that up and start it a little early.
I love how Quincy is trying to sell the case binds because he's got to make the covers for those. So I'm glad that he's on board with that.
Nice.
That makes me happy. They're coming next.
Woo! All right, Quincy. Make sure if you want, once that's done and you've got a link, you can send it to us and we'll add it. So as people come later to watch the show, they can see it there. So we've got winners.
Oh, yay!
Todd, do you want to pull that up and read it? Do you want me to read it? What would...
You go ahead and read it. I'm not sure exactly. Oh, okay. I see it. No, I got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So winners, the Amazon gift card goes to Donna Kunkel. Congratulations. We'll get that to you. Set of signed books. Weston Allen. Yay! Weston's been making comments on my Facebook page lately, and I appreciate them very, very much. She had some very nice things to say. And the Devora Dragon. Who could it be? It's Stacy! Oh my gosh, I'm actually jealous. I mean, like, I've got the books already, so the dragon is the thing that I think is the big one. So you need to email Becca at beccaleegardner@gmail.com. Oh, thank you so much, Jeremy. Look at that. I don't even need to finish it. And then you can claim their prizes. Claim your prizes.
Get your presents.
Thank you, Becca, for being the administrator of the prizes. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Seriously, we appreciate you, Becca. Yay! Donna's excited. Yay, Donna.
Awesome. Stacy, best day ever. I know, right? Score on that dragon. On that dragon.
We're all very jealous.
Pictures when you get him home, or get her home, I should say, and how she settles into the household. You have to send me a series of pictures and what you're feeding her. You got to, good feeding care of your goddess dragon. Yep.
It's very important. All of us need to know because we are all I'm very jealous. I don't know.
Right?
Else, but that's awesome. Okay, so Todd, any final thoughts that you want to share?
I just really appreciate everybody who showed up to be part of my launch. I'm very excited about this story, and I guarantee you, if you like high fantasy, you're going to love it. You're going to love the whole story. Just get into it. Fall into Fair Mist.
Fall in. You're going to want to move in. It's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. And so, Todd, where can people find you? I mean, I know we've got your links and all that good stuff, but
yeah. So my website, toddfahnestock.com. That's one place to do it. You can find me on my Facebook page. So that's an easy place to find me. My Facebook group is a fun place. We get a lot of kind of cool conversations. Lots of we dig gifts there. We do a lot of gifts, especially when somebody and joins. And then my Amazon page, you can find me there. It's good to follow me on Amazon, so that way when something comes out, you'll know it. They'll send you an email. It's kind of a neat little service that Amazon provides if you follow me on my author page. Anything new coming out goes straight to you. And then is there anything else? I think I think you can also find me on Instagram. I don't know if you have that link, Jeremy, but we've also got Instagram as well, if that's more your thing. Just type in my name. pretty unusual name, so probably find me pretty easy. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I don't know if there's any other place to. And Twitter as well, although I'm not on Twitter as much. Twitter's kind of going through, it's like the Wild West there at Twitter right now.
Wild
You
times.
never know what's coming. And let's see. Oh, Stacy says she will definitely send proof of care after adoption. Thank you.
Nice.
Want to make
Jeremy,
sure. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, Jeremy, can you put up Becca's email one more time for Donna too, please? We can keep talking though. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I was just So I'm just very excited about the dragon.
Right? The aftercare.
I got to see this in various stages. Like she did a sneak peek and she just put the claw over like a stack of books, and I'm like, that thing's huge. It's like the claw's like almost over the whole stack of books. So
Dragon Goddess. Yeah, it's gonna be big.
Exactly.
That is so funny.
Any other questions for me? Anybody have like any last minute questions about anything having to do with the book? Well, anyways, you can always ask me at my email address as well if you want to send an email, or just put something up on Facebook.
Yeah. Just find him. It's normal. It's not stalking if he asks for it. Any cons or anything coming up in 2023?
So many. My goal is for 2 cons a month. That's my stretch goal. And I got Albuquerque Comic-Con, I think the weekend of the 20th that's coming up. So I will be in Albuquerque. And then I've got GaryCon in Wisconsin. I've got Planet Comic-Con in Kansas City. Obviously FanX in Salt Lake City, I go every year. I've got Fan Expo in Denver, I go every year. And there's my Instagram for people who are interested in my Instagram. And then there's a lot of like Christmas fests that I do at the end of the year. I mean, I just got done with doing like 4 or 5 Christmas fests in a row. It was like 2 in November, 2 in December. It's been crazy. And I'm expanding all the time. I want to try and get out to Charlotte and do a con with Quincy. We haven't nailed that down yet, but we really kind of want to do like either Heroes Con in Charlotte or possibly Galaxy Con, I think. And I always forget this one. I'm going to San Diego Comic-Con this year.
NBD.
Right? I always forget. Oh, thank you, Becca. She always HeroCon. Quincy is talking about HeroCon. That's what I want to go to. I'm gonna try and be all over the place. I love it. Over the place. So HeroCon. Thanks, Quincy.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, folks. So if you've got questions for Todd, you can find him in all of those places. You can go to some of these cons. It seems like they're going to be all over the country. So chances are good he'll be in your neck of the woods. And most importantly, you can download this trilogy and all of his other books to your e-reader today, or get it in print in the next 2 days. And just lose yourself in some great world building and amazing character beats. So,
paperback is available now. Ebook is available now. And I have it on really good authority. And I think recorded on this particular podcast that Quincy's going to get me the case bind stuff really soon. So that will also go up there.
I mean, that appears to be in writing. Yeah. So you could, buy an electronic copy now and then get a fancy copy in print. That's right. Well, thank you. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Becca. Todd, you are a rock star. Congrats again on the book and the trilogy. That's awesome. Thanks, Quincy.
Thank you. And thank you so much for doing this, Marisa. It is always such a joy. I mean, you and I could just chat for an hour and not even have cameras on us. I think we could just go and go and go.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's for fun. I love it. Well, anytime. I love chatting with awesome authors and awesome people. So it's a win as far as I'm concerned.
And thanks to everybody that showed up and has made the chat so lively. That's been great to see.
It's true. You are all a delight. Thank you so much. Have a great night. Go read lots of good books.
Yes. And let me know what you think.
Reviews. We love reviews.
Reviews are always good.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Woo!
Yay!